The USFL and the XFL, they're no more. Press F and pay your respects, boys. Wait, am I reading this right? It says that they decided to use the Dragon Ball Z fusion to come together and form the United Football League? Now, one would think that when combining two leagues into one, that you would want to take the best of the best over to the new league. Like, that just makes the most logical sense here. Yeah, so I don't know how to explain that. That obviously wasn't the case. So instead, the leagues decided to bring over a couple of the best teams, and then the rest were just straight middle of the pack or just the bottom feeders of the league. There's nothing quite like bringing over a bunch of just terrible teams to help sell tickets to an already anemic market. You know, actually, I'm saying that as if there's not a certain NFL team who sells less tickets than some UFL teams. So it could be worse. But also, with the dispersal draft, you would hope that these bottom feeder teams are just able to kind of turn their franchises around. But, you know, like I tell a bottom frag teammate in a Counter-Strike comp game, every team needs an anchor, baby. And I'm looking at you, San Antonio Brahmins. Now, I know so far in this video, it just sounds like I'm here to bash spring football, but it is quite en contraire mon frere. And no, I am not French, and I am sorry if I slaughtered that. But I'm here making the video about the UFL because the NFL season came to a, less than climactic close. You know, that's just my opinion. But, you know, I need something to kind of pass the time until August. So, with that being said, over the last couple of weeks, I have done a lot of research and film watching. Now, by film watching, I mean mostly watching highlight videos on YouTube, and no, unfortunately, none of them are as exciting as those West Virginia Tavon Austin days, and you know the video I'm talking about. But I did all the research on all the teams so that way you, my friend, didn't have to. Now, finally, after all of that, the first team of my roster breakdown are the reigning two-time USFL champions, the Birmingham Stallions. This team is led by a 22-year-old GM, and that's right, you heard me correctly, 22, and their head coach, Skip Holtz. And if the last name Holtz sounds familiar, that's because his dad was the legendary head coach, Lou Holtz, of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, this Stallions team came into the USFL and have been absolute juggernauts since. And I mean, here we are in 2024 and a little under a month before the season starts. And it's hard for me to not look at this roster and just think that they're going to make the UFL their big. And not only am I saying that because of the clout that follows this team because of their previous two championship wins, but it's their ability to adapt with personnel changes. And by that, I mean whether they have injured players or players that leave or get signed.
This motherfucker don't miss.
So to start us off, let's go ahead and talk about the strengths of the Stallions team, which, if you don't know, is their offense. So initially, the Stallions started the 2023 season with Jamar Smith as their quarterback. Who? You know, the guy that helped them win the USFL championship the year before. You know what? Don't even worry about it, because that's why I'm here, remember? So we're good. But here's a cool connection, if you even want to call it that. Holtz actually coached Smith for 2 years at Louisiana Tech, and I'm sure that held no precedence on whether or not he was the starting quarterback or not. But alas, Smith went down in their week 1 contest against the New Jersey Generals and out-trotted Alexander Lee Magoo. Bro was out here throwing absolute piss missiles, and he was torching, and I mean torching, the USFL. He threw for 2,105 yards with a 67.4% completion percentage. And just in case you want to know, That's a higher completion percentage than CJ Stroud. If you care about it, a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And oh my gosh, man, I need to settle down. I'm over here thinking of talking about Aaron Rodgers. Anyway, he ended up finishing the season with an 8-2 record and leading the team to the eventual USFL championship. And obviously his efforts were good enough because it led to a contract with the Green Bay Packers. So obviously it doesn't matter if you're torching part-time bag boys or not. Just like any other sports team, a UFL team is more than just their quarterback, so on to the skill position players we go. Now, the Stallions did a really good job of bringing back some key guys that made an impact during their championship runs. Like, for instance, their star in the making wideout, Deon Cain, who, here's just a little tidbit of information, caught 3 touchdowns in the championship game alone. They also ended up bringing back their tight end, Jay Sternberger, who led the USFL in reception touchdowns, and their running back, CJ Maribel, who somehow, some way, rushed for 524 yards with their airmail offense, and that just blows my mind. Now, unfortunately for the Stallions and their leading receiver, Davion Davis, he left and ended up signing a contract with the Washington Commanders. And to be honest, I think he would have been better off staying with the Stallions. Obviously, that's a joke, but I feel like that this is a way bigger signing for the Commanders than it is Davis. But hopefully this is a stepping stone for the newly found wideout. With McGoat's departure, one cannot help but think that Jamar Smith is just going to go right back under center into that starting role. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with his ties with his former coach. No, but for real, in all honesty, Smith was the reason why the Birmingham Stallions won their first championship back in 2022. But let me tell you something right now, boy. He ain't no good on Magoo. I can tell you that right now. But I can only keep talking about the good for so long until it's time for me to talk about the bad for this team. And unfortunately for them, it's the defense. Well, I guess fortunately for them, because in the UFL, they don't need to play defense. Now, when I say that this Stallions defense was bad, I mean, they were the second worst ranked defense in 2023. They gave up 308.9 yards per game. But to give credit where credit's due, this defense is the definition of bend don't break, and somehow, some way, ended up with the 3rd best scoring defense in the USFL, only allowing 19.6 points per game. But when that dispersal draft hit, boy, the Stallions were looking at them defensive players like, aha! Now, using 7 of their 11 picks in phase 2 drafting defensive players and 5 of them being defensive backs specifically, you know, they at least knew where their problems lied. And unfortunately, they weren't able to retain their stud defensive back in Nate Brooks, but they were able to draft a couple of other guys that could fill some gaps in their lineup. Although they lost arguably their best defensive player, the Stallions were able to steal linebacker Chris Orr off the board, who won all USFL honors last year after having a career year with the New Jersey Generals. And sorry for another player comparison, but once I can't help but get a little curious, but I'm just going to leave this here. They even added defensive back Channing Strebling to the lineup, and he has quickly established himself as one of the premier defensive backs in the entire league. And they brought him in hoping that he could fill the shoes that Nate Brooks left behind. And to top it off, they even got themselves the all-USFL tackling machine, Chiava Tazzino. And if you don't know the name, you will soon, because this guy is just too good to not be on an NFL roster. I mean, he did sign a contract with the 49ers, but they have one of the best defenses in the entire league, so the bar was just set, probably a little high. Also, I can't talk about the Stallions team without talking about their leader on the defense, Scooby Wright. And yes, plus, with a nickname like Shark Dog, it's just hard not to mention this guy. Oddly enough, as I was doing research, I came across a petition to try to allow Shark Dog to return from his IR ineligibility a week early so he could play in the last couple of season games. Unfortunately, it didn't work. But hey, at least he played in the last regular season game, right? You know what? Free Shark Dog! So, just a quick little rant before I sign off here, guys. So, in my research, I found it very, very difficult to find some, if not most, of the information readily available. The reason why that this is a problem is because if the UFO wants to make this work, like it's been proven to not in the past, they have to be more organized. Like when I'm trying to find information about certain players or teams, it shouldn't be a whole process trying to figure out what players are where. All I'm asking is, as a spectator of the sport, just make it a little bit easier for me to find any information about the players or teams. Like, if you want us to take you serious, you got to take yourself serious. Like, for instance, I made a video about the UFL's most premier team, but most people watching this video won't know who any of these players are, and that's the problem. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out to come watch my video, and don't forget to tune into the next one where I talk about the reigning XFL champions, the Arlington Renegades. Okay, bye.